a couple days ago in this energy reset challenge, we were talking about the overcrowding of the pumpkins that I planted. I just threw a bunch of our old pumpkin seeds. It ended up being too much. And we're talking about when you do too much growth, you actually stint your growth. And interestingly enough, that was probably only a few days ago. And the weeds on this mound outside of that pumpkin patch started to die. They had their season, and now they are slowly dying out and crisping away. And naturally, the pumpkins have scaled this mound over these dying weeds, and they have found new space. And this reminds me a lot of why this Leaving the Darkness book even came to be, this burnout guidebook, is because I didn't want to talk about my burnout. Like, it's my crash and burn as a high performer. It's not something fun to talk about. But I was going to doctors and therapists, and I saw all the specialists, and they all just had like these little answers for me or little guidance, but it didn't make sense in this busy world as a working parent. It just didn't fit my lifestyle. So I had to start piecing my own recovery journey of how do you release stress? How do you manage stress? How do you reclaim this energy when everything still demands your time? And it's that messy middle of recovery, the messy middle of self-growth, and figuring out how are you going to sustain the energy in this demanding world. And I had to crawl myself out of the darkness, and that's why this title came to be. And I remember my book publisher saying, like, not a great title. Like, it doesn't really make sense for what you're talking about. It sounds like you're talking about some kind of caves or something. And I said, but people who have been in burnout or in a dark season of life will get this, right? That they have been in the darkness and seen a little bit of light, and that's what they follow. That's what they cling to until they get to a better place. And that's exactly what these pumpkins did. Is it was overcrowded in there, as you saw in the previous video, and then there was no room. And then as these little weeds started to die out, they found a little crawl space, and they just went for it, right? They climbed this mound over these dying weeds, and they found their sunlight, and they're going to plop some great pumpkins. And it's pretty much all along this mound here, the pumpkin patch has crawled out. And I think that that natural lesson right there is just anyone who's been through a dark or hard season of life and had to crawl themselves out. Man, this is such a metaphor right in front of you, that hang on to that light and cling to it, because that is going to be the thing on your dark days that keeps you going. That's going to be the thing that when you have to make the hard decisions or have to leave that toxic relationship or make those big life changes, that's the thing, right? You have to crawl over the crap to get there. And I want you to honor and acknowledge that, because in self-growth, we want to make it look like this giant highlight reel, and it's a mess. It is a mess. There's nothing fun about it. The growth comes after. That's where the lesson is in the mess. And so I want you to honor that mess, that climb over the weedy mound, because on the other side of it is as much sunlight as you want to soak up and as much room that you want to spread. And take a little lesson from my very resilient pumpkin patch that were just seeds from last year, nothing fancy about them, no fancy setup in how I planted them, that they were going to die and strangle each other in that tight pumpkin patch. And they crawled over the mound, over those weeds that are dying, and they found the light. All they had to do was cling to that little bit of sunshine and keep crawling. So if you're in a tough season of life, if you're in a dark place, I want you to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that cling on to that little piece of light, and you just got to keep crawling up that mound, because on the other side of it is space. On the other side of it is just so much light that you can absorb your days again, because all of these little patterns either feed the energy or they drain them.